fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
The constitutional point of view was critical for Jefferson's support of the Bill of Rights.
As we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens, I can hear you!
Is time running out?
It's Saturday. Welcome to the Hayden Collins radio program. I'm your host, Hayden Collins. It's the Intelligence Syndicate. We're going to talk a little politics from the past today, which is going to be obnoxious to some of you, but especially for those young communists inside the United States. They're probably going to be terribly upset at this show today. and oh yes, the socialists might be upset as well. I want to take you back in time, 1944-ish. Not even going to give you the specific date, but 1994-ish. Let's say the beginning of 1994 or 1944. Yeah, God, listen to me, 44. And Nazi Germany is in retreat on the Eastern Front. D-Day hasn't happened yet. There is a mass of Russian units being sacrificed on the front. I mean, and I'm saying being sacrificed. You know, if you look at any of the history documentation all the way up until the fall of the Russian government, the communist Russian government, it was the Russian army was, filled with heroes, and their strategy was to lose until the Germans ran out of resources, and then they were going to come back and take them. When you look at the documents and you look at everything else, you find that that wasn't necessarily the truth. Russian units were afraid of the Germans. Russian units had problems. They had morale issues. They had issues with, they can't even find enough ammunition to fight the Germans. It was awful. Even reserves were awful. And eventually the Germans just ran out of bullets. They couldn't kill enough of them. They couldn't take enough land. And of course they made some strategic mistakes. Some serious strategic mistakes. But what we're going to focus on here, we're going to focus on Poland. Now, when Poland fell, and this is still a mystery to history, when Poland fell, the Germans claimed to have found graves, mass graves of thousands of Polish officers that were just taken out and shot. The Russians blamed it on the Germans blamed it on the Russians. Till this day, even in the Russian documentation that was released, nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. So now the Russian people are kind of, who did this? Who was the one that, who brought this? Who killed all of our officers? Who killed all of our family members? What happened here? And, of course, Poland was overrun by the Germans and by the Russians. But let's go closer to the end of the war. Let's go to 1944, where Germany's losing control of Poland, and the Russians are coming in force. Now they got huge losses. It is massive losses on the Russians. The Germans are losing ground just because they don't have the equipment to hold them back. But it's still. I don't even know how to best describe this. It's throw as many people as you can at the situation until you overrun them or overwhelm them, and they have no choice but to surrender. It doesn't matter how many people die, just go do it. And that was pretty much the Russian doctrine of the time. So in Poland, Germany occupied Poland. They had their own underground. Now they had their underground, actually two undergrounds. that we can talk about in history. One underground was the communist underground, the Polish communist, and they were pro-Russia, and they wanted Stalin to come in and take out all the Russians and join the communists, because they thought they'd get a better deal with communism than they did with the Nazi socialist. National Socialism, Nazism, whatever. Keep in mind, look at Poland now. They're occupied by the National Socialists of Germany, the Nazis, and they've got a communist underground that wants to bring communism in because they think it's going to be better than National Socialism. Think about this real hard. This is the Intelligence Syndicate. I want you to go back in history and look at this. This is one of those striking moments in political history. You go, what? But there was also another underground. There was an underground that wanted a free Poland that was pro-ally. What I mean by pro-ally, meaning, yes, the Russians are allies, but they were pro-ally as in France, as in Great Britain, as in the United States. And on a fateful day, Stalin pulled up outside of Warsaw and parked his tanks and parked everything and would not go a step further. Instead, he did radio broadcast to the undergrounds in Poland, and they had about 25,000 people strong. 25,000 people in the free underground. And he told them, start the fight, upset the Germans, and we are going to come in as soon as you get things out, marked up. We're going to come in and join the battle, and we will take them down together. Well, if you were a communist guy and you wanted to get rid of a standing army of 25,000 free people that did not agree with communism, would you A, trick them into fighting the Nazis for you and then, let them get killed off, so when you come in, all you got to do is mop up and you take your pro-Polish communists to the next level? Because all of your freedom people fought to the death for freedom? Or do you just come in and try to rescue everybody and say, okay, we need to sort this out and let's form a government? And no, Stalin was a communist. He had a political agenda. And he chose A. He sacrificed by lying to these people, saying, hey, we'll come in and help you if you start off kicking the Nazis. But we're going to come in and fire the bombs away. We're right outside of town. So what had happened was the Nazis got the uprising. They said, oh, geez, look what's going on here. And I tell you how brave these Polish people were. I mean, they stole all kinds of Nazi equipment to do this uprising. It's not like they had an ammunition supply. It's not like they had unlimited guns. Most of them didn't even have guns. But they took on the Nazis inside of Poland. And the rest of Warsaw and the main town there. And the Germans wiped them out. It took 6 weeks. But the Germans wiped them out. But they took out a lot of Germans with them, too. So when they were done, and Stalin said, oh, okay, well, they pretty much wiped out my competition. All I got to do is go in and help my pro-communist Polish people, and we're good to go. He comes waltzing into Warsaw and the rest of Poland, and it fell within weeks. Now, the only reason I tell you this diplomacy, this backstabbing, what Stalin did to those freedom fighters and all those people that fought in Poland for a free country, not for a communist country, is I want you to look at the overall scenario here. Now, it's not going to be real hard to find this. I mean, it was a double cross. It was one of those things that later we found out through documents that since the French and British and American governments had no control over Stalin, obviously, and he was not going to play by the rules with everybody else. He was going to go for a land grab. Churchill stepped in and said, all right, I'm going to go talk to this guy. We're going to sort this out and find out what the hell's going on. So Russia had been destroyed so bad, had been taken to the brink so bad, that during the same time period, they were surrounding one of the ports up there, and the Germans were in full retreat. So the Germans sent like 10 ships up there to get all the civilians out. And the Russian submarines waited for the ships to go into port to pick up people and waiting for them to get to sea and kill 25,000 people with torpedoes and sank all the German ships. It was shooting ducks in a barrel, fish in a barrel. They wanted revenge. They wanted to destroy everything. And this is where a lot of the ethnic cleansing came from. This is why they had gulags in Russia for any Germans that survived, 30 years in working in the frozen tundra. And then after that, they may have released them so they can live 1 or 2 years of their lives before they die. The Germans were going to pay. Okay? They were just going to pay, and Stalin was going to ensure it. They were going to pay. So Churchill meets with Stalin. Secretly makes an agreement going, look, we're not going to get in your way on this Warsaw thing. And we're going to divide up Germany so this doesn't happen again. You get, 95% influence in Poland, and you guarantee us influence in Greece. 90% you guarantee us influence in Italy. And they made a deal. They actually made a deal. And then Churchill had to go back and talk to Great Britain and talk to the President of the United States and say, look, this guy's out of control, but here's the deal. Here's what we got. Well, true to form, the guy held his deal. I mean, it's not like they were going to control him anyway, but Stalin held his deal. But this was the forming of communist Russia. And this was the forming of the land grab at the moment. And it became pretty much like imperialists. They just said, okay, this is the way it's going to be. Now, keep in mind, the reason I thought this was an appropriate part of history to revisit with the double cross of Stalin and the Free Poles and the communist Poles and how they came into power and what the Nazis did, is I'm looking at Syria right now and I'm seeing history repeat itself. The players are different. The players are different. The faces are a little different. But the situation is very similar. I can see that. I can see the political options played out where they can't go any further, they can't do anything, and there's got to be peace over there. So somebody has to negotiate with somebody, and we don't have a vested interest in the region other than the fact to clear out ISIS and say, hey, let's don't do that again. The United States found itself in an economic position for the first time in a long time that we're, selling oil to other countries instead of buying it. Selling resources to other countries instead of buying it. Looking at that region of the world going, okay, if the only people buying their oil and oil prices has dropped and we're competing with them, why are we going to help our competitors? There's an economic value there as well. So you got King Assad, you got the Russians, you got the Syrian people with the undergrounds, and yes, there are undergrounds. You've got Kurds, you've got the Turks. And so, you have to say, all right, well, what happened to all these people? What's going on? So when the Turks overran positions and they caught up with the ISIS guys, you never heard from those ISIS guys again. You never heard from those ISIS guys again. So I can't help but wonder if we're sitting there paying to take care of all these ISIS guys in jail and we're holding them and yada, 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 and then we say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. We have to abide by the Geneva Convention. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to leave them to you guys. And we leave, and the Turks come in, and they eliminate them. And the Turks aren't abiding by the Geneva Convention. But we're not there to see it. We're not responsible for it. So, to me, the first double cross was to the prisoners. All the prisoners got killed. Well, I'm not going to say all. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm just assuming a lot of the prisoners, since we don't have tracking on them anymore. We don't have. Even the intelligence guys. We don't know what happened to those guys. Everybody's kind of closing their eyes and going the other direction. And then the Turks are going, that problem is taken care of. We could probably have a lot more peace in the region now because although the U.S. does not kill their prisoners, we do. And this sends a new message to all the evilness around this area. We got this. So now the Turks have jumped in. The King Assad's got to go, holy crap, you know, now I've got a real problem. I knew what the United States was capable of. Now they're kind of bailing out. I know what the Russians are capable of. They're kind of hanging around. But I don't know what these Turks are capable of, so whatever we got in that region, we better, you know, pay attention. So the chessboard shifted. And the diplomacy shifted as well. Now, keep this in mind. This is like the odd history part of this. Poland, when it became part of communist Russia, when Russia fell, Poland had not only had enough, but they had completely gone the opposite direction. And they wanted nothing to do with communists. They wanted nothing to do with the rules and regulations of communism and so on and so forth. They are completely the opposite direction. One can't help but wonder that if this region that is so riddled with the corruption that the communist Russians were riddled with, that the people are just going to sooner or later get tired of it and do like they did in Russia and do like they did in Poland and say, okay, you're going down, you have no economic support, you have no economic structure. We're challenging the government. We're going to take care of it. We're going to raise our own government. And we're going to do it ourselves because you guys stink. I can almost see that playing out, but I'm not sure of the players. But here's another backwards thought for you, too. How is it that the U.S. and the Russians are in the same country working together with special forces, and we see this play out, and there's no fighting between the Russians and Americans, but all of a sudden, the Americans say, Russia, Turkey, you guys handle that. It almost seems like they're working together in a way that we did in the Strait of Hormuz, where American ships would, you know, the pirates, all the pirate guys, the American ships would take the pirates. Would take them captive, take them to court, this, that, and the other. You can go on YouTube and look at what happened when Russian destroyers found pirates. They killed them all. Destroyed the ship, sank it. They're all dead. There was no judge, there was no jury, there was no executioner. If you're a pirate, you died. There are rumors that if Russian ships and American ships are working in the same area, the Americans would allow the Russians to get the pirates just so they would kill them. They're not bound by certain things. I can't help but think that this is the same scenario playing out on land. We'll see. We'll see in the coming months. But I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that I think this is going to be the same scenario that just got played out. In a few months' time, we'll see something different. But strangely enough, and I want to point this out too, because the news is not covering this at all. How quiet is North Korea right now? How quiet is North Korea right now? I'm just wondering. Let's keep an eye on that one. I got a feeling that things are quietly going on behind the scenes that we have no idea that and or solution what may come of it. All right, we come back from the break. The Twins, oops, I arted again. They're going to be on with another segment. And then, oh yeah, and I do have to mention this. Next week we're going to do our Halloween show. So we're going to do some spooky politics. Not so much history next week. Just some spooky politics. In the meantime, get ready for Halloween. Watch out for the wee ones. Get the costumes ready. This year, I've had some requests to dress up as a certain individual to go out on Halloween. I might do it. That's for you, kiddo. All right, we'll see you after the break.